Good evening, folks. This is going to be an interesting conversation, or monologue, really, for me. My good friend, Master Jose Gonzalez from Trenton and Hamilton region of New Jersey, my hometown, or my ex-hometown. He said he was having a discussion, an argument with a Krav Maga practitioner, and it was about speed. And Master Jose Gonzalez said that if you were to take your hardcore karate moves and practice them at Tai Chi speed, sorry folks, people above me are making some noise, but we're just going to have to adjust. At Tai Chi speed, you would get not only the same benefit, but you would be able to execute the moves for real in a real life situation. And he's not talking about some hypothetical theory he developed. He says he knows people that only train that way, and they have been attacked and they have defended themselves. So, let's take a look at what's known and what's unknown about that statement. If we take it as true, that the statement is true, that the people did train that way and only train that way, and they defended themselves, what we don't know is what defending themselves meant. Were they attacked by a gang of people? And was it like a Bruce Lee movie where one man knocked down 15 people, including people with weapons? Probably not. Okay. Was it an extended slugfest? Probably not. We don't know what it was. A self-defense situation could be one person trying to pick a fight with you. They start shoving, they start pushing, and they either grab or they punch at you, right? It could be someone sticking you up. It could be two people trying to gang up on you. It could be a lot of things, right? So it's entirely possible for you to be the MMA champ of the world and get knifed. It's entirely possible by an amateur at knifing. All right? It's entirely possible for you to be the greatest grappler in the world and get leg kicked so hard that your grappling is useless. All right? So let's not get. One of the problems of the age we live in, the MMA age, is that people think UFC 1 was year zero as far as that goes, and that nothing before that worked. There was nothing effective. And remember, if you're watching my channel, understand that I am talking about martial arts that work, martial arts that have a practical element as well as other elements. Okay? There's a lot of talk about what is a real martial art, but as far as I'm concerned, if you've trained for 20 years and you can't stop someone from throwing jabs and crosses and uppercuts at you, or defend yourself against a high school wrestler, then you're not as valuable to me. Your information is not as valuable to me as someone that can use their art, that has an understanding of its practicality, its context, and the reasons why techniques are done this way in this situation and not this way in that situation. Okay? That's not me denigrating you. It's just that I'm living in this particular realm. I'm exploring this particular realm, and many of my viewers are. Okay, this is the conversation we're having. So, speed. First of all, many people don't know that there are different types of speed. There is the simple, fast twitch speed at which you can contract the muscle and execute a technique, and it's fairly stable throughout your life, right? It can be influenced by your training in early childhood, in adolescence, right? But generally, once it reaches its peak, it's there, and it's fairly stable across your life, and it diminishes a little bit as you get older. And a lot of times, it's not that the muscles don't have that capacity to move that fast. It's that the tissues of the body are worn out, right? This is very important because there's other things that affect speed. So if I have really good fast twitch muscles and I'm very tense and my agonistic and antagonistic muscles are fighting each other, if I'm throwing a jab, most of the work is done by tricep, deltoid, some pec. Okay, that's once the core is engaged, but as far as the muscles driving the movement, many of the so-called pushing muscles, right? And my pulling muscles have to be fairly relaxed, and then they tense a little bit after impact or during impact to stabilize, and then they engage to pull back, and then the muscles that initiated the punch have to relax so that it can retract into position. right? So if I have excess tension in my body and I don't know how to coordinate, my speed suffers. Then there's the actual, what happens in a fight isn't just speed versus speed, it's reaction time, it's your ability to accelerate quickly, to turn it on and off. There's so many factors. And when we develop all these attributes, they're not often best developed by moving quickly. If it was as simple as sprinting, whoever, you do some sprints and then you sprint and it improves your sprint. But even sprinters do lots of other things and even run slowly to warm up. They do a bunch of things, right? But combat, and we are talking about combat here, okay? Combat meaning fighting, meaning warring between two people or a person and a group or a group and a group. Mars, the god of war, martial. We're talking about a combative endeavor, right? And I'll tell you, a combative endeavor is determined by many things, by the context, by the terrain, not just by the combatant and the combatants, right? You have to develop many attributes, many skills, and awareness and mentality. And oftentimes the way that's done is by training slowly. If you don't believe me, take a look at the military, right? I participated in training in the Marine Corps and in the Army National Guard. And we don't do everything full speed. If you're learning CQB, close quarters battle, right? Counterterrorism tactics, basically a militarized version of SWAT. If you're doing something called MOUNT, military operations in urban terrain, which is a blend of infantry tactics and CQB, or what you would call SWAT. Oftentimes we train very slow. First, we take our individual weapons, and if we learn how to come from the holster to the hunt, 2 in the chest, 1 in the head, we come back, right? We do it slow. We practice it with an empty weapon. We dry fire the weapons slow. Then we practice very carefully controlled courses of fire. Shooters. When I give my command, you will engage the target, put 2 rounds in the chest, 1 in the head on the forward target. On my command, fire. Doom, doom, doom. You take your time. You get sight alignment, sight picture. You do all these things methodically and slowly to develop the attribute, right? Then you practice, again, empty weapons. You get a group. They move in formation. They practice shooting and firing. Then, you want to maybe do a course of live fire at a place called a tire house, day and night, sometimes with gas masks on, sometimes with infrared. You're doing all these things, right? And you're often doing them very slow, and you do it over and over again until this is muscle memory. And then, only then, do you do it fast. And half the time when you're doing it fast, it's the culmination of your training, and it's more of a test to see whether you can do it fast. Once they reach that, you would think that if speed and violence of action were purely what it was all about, and in this ultimate combative endeavor, very, very high-level skill is required to do this, right? That once you learn how to do it at speed, you would just practice most of the time at speed, but it's not done that way. The bulk of your training is done slow, methodically, to ensure that there are no mistakes. Because if you apply speed to something that isn't improperly aligned, something that isn't properly done, something that isn't accurate, that isn't balanced, okay, then all you have is faster mistakes, and the results can often be catastrophic. In the field of CQB or MOUNT, it can be trainees shooting each other in training. In the field of martial arts, it can be tearing up your body because you're not moving correctly. It can be getting to the target really fast and having no power. How frustrating would it be in a self-defense situation? You're there, you're in a threatful situation. Maybe you've got your wife, your kids, your mother, your father, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatever. You got someone or ones you really care about beside you, and there's someone that wants to do them harm, right? Maybe rape them, maybe kill them, torture them, whatever. And you're the only thing standing between them, right? That's the kind of situation that your martial art training, one of those things is it should be able to give you a fighting chance in a situation like that, right? So imagine that threat comes in and you have to deal with it. No one, you can't run because then you abandon people that need you, and you light off. You hit 1, 2, 3, 4. You get off a kick, pow! You hit with a palm, and it just bounces off the person because you don't have proper alignment. You're not hitting the right targets. You know what I mean? Let me tell you something. Getting fast, going full speed when you have an adrenaline dump is not that hard. People often move faster when they're adrenalized, when they're in that threatened, I must react, I flip that switch mode. Moving faster is usually not the problem. It's fine motor skills, it's accuracy, it's calmness, it's the ability to, as you're attacking or defending, look for if you're attacking, look for attacks that are coming and defend and continue attacking. If you're defending, once you're done defending, it's looking for a counterattack, right? Intuitively. So, yeah, I've seen it. I know people that, for example, don't do much sparring, and they practice techniques, and oftentimes they're practicing slow. In Shaolin Chuan Fa Silum Pai Quan, we did what were called Kun Tao techniques, which are basically one-step techniques. We move slow, but we made contact with our combinations. We placed our hands and our feet in the proper places. You know, we would touch the throat. We wouldn't connect with the eye or the groin, obviously, but we would even connect with knee techniques and push and push through and all these things, right? It's a lot like what you see the Kung Fu Sansu people do, right? And the Sistema people do, right? And I've known some of those people. They didn't even become advanced students. They were there 3 months, 4 months, maybe 6 months, and they moved on with their life, whatever happened, and they had gotten in altercations, and they defended themselves successfully, whatever it meant in that situation. Sometimes it meant that they were just able to block a punch, throw a counter punch, a counter kick, and get away. I knew one guy, he was like 12, and he got attacked by a group of kids, and he went all Kun Tao on him, and he broke 2 of their arms doing a basic technique that we did, right? Standing China. Okay? So why would that be true? If we accept the fact that it's true, why would it be true? Why would we consider that training slow would enable you to move fast? We've talked about being able to hit targets correctly. We've talked about correct angle, correct alignment, and all those things. We've talked about the fact that an adrenaline dump will give you speed anyway. But in the stress of combat, and someone's in your face trying to hurt you, there must be something else going on. There is. First of all, the human brain. The human brain is interesting because oftentimes we are not directly experiencing the world. We're seeing it through our senses. If we were directly in contact with everything, like for example, if I had instantaneous access to another person's mind, body, and soul, and they wanted to hurt me, they would never touch me with a punch or a kick or a knife or a gun, because I would instantly sense what's happening and move before their body could even move. But the way our bodies are wired is our brain generates action. Our brain sends an impulse to our body. It travels through the nerves. Then it begins to move, right? Our brain perceives something. It has to take in that perception. It has to process it. It has to generate a response. It has to send the response out. There's always some type of time lag, right? We're intellects and souls inside this body, experiencing things through this body. And the brain, if it experiences something inside as a fantasy or as a fear, it's as if it's experiencing the real thing, right? It creates physiological effects. If you're thinking of something stressful, you can create stress responses in your body. If you're thinking of something pleasurable, you can create pleasure responses in your body, right? And so what you're doing by moving slowly is you're training success. You're training a virtual reality type of simulation of what it would be like to be victorious, right? And it doesn't matter if it's a slow or fast version of it. It's just there. The other thing is, there are some things that I call threshold events, right? So, for example, if you've never ever punched a person in the face before successfully and damaged them, heck, if you've never punched a person in the face before, it's a big deal, right? You may be in a fight and someone's punching you and you may hesitate even though you see it because something inside you, your social conditioning or whatever, or your innate compassion, or you may not want to punch that person in the face, right? But once you do it, once that flip has been switched, it's not that hard to do it again, right? For example, if you look at the way recruits train in boot camp, they're trained a certain way, and it's a very rough way of training. It's very verbally abusive, right? If you notice, a lot of military training in professional units is not like that. Certain things don't have to be done over and over again. As a matter of fact, if you were to keep doing it, you degrade the training, right? If all you did was come in and spar full contact every day, your ability would diminish. And, within about, let's say you're doing this 3 times a week. You come in, I'm assuming you stretch out, I'm assuming you practice basics, but what if you're so fanatical about realism that you're like, bags aren't realistic, stretching isn't realistic, pad work isn't realistic. The only thing that's realistic is beating each other up, right? If you were to do that 3 times a week and nothing else, and let's say you're simulating a fight, a 12-round fight, 2 12-minute rounds for kickboxing, right? I would say you're lucky if you got 6 of those workouts in before your skill just deteriorated horribly. You would dread the workouts. You'd come in and you wouldn't be learning, you wouldn't be progressing. You'd just be taking more and more of a beating, getting more and more damage, losing more and more brain cells, right? No, you want to train intelligently. You want to shadow box. You want to practice on basics on the bag. You want to practice in the air, get your form right, right? There are professional world-class fighters that don't even do any sparring. If they have 8 weeks to train, they might not do any sparring the first week. They start getting into it a little by little. They peak their sparring, and then they stop sparring maybe a week or 2 from the fight. Why? Because you want to go in there fresh. You want to go in there undamaged, repaired. My motto is get as close as you can to the real thing, as little as you need to get the most out of your training. If you're a pro fighter, you want to get some hard sparring in, but it's got to be a very, very controlled thing. And if you're someone who's never going to enter the ring, if you're in your 40s, 50s, right, and you know your basics, you've moved fast, you've hit things, you know how to hit, you don't necessarily need to train super hard and super fast. Your body will tear up, right? I know this is a hard concept to get. I may have to make another video of this, but Master Jose Gonzalez, it provoked some things, some thoughts in me that I really thought. This whole idea of softness is important. Soft training, non-impact training, not full speed training, is just as valuable, if not more, as the fast training. All right, you can only go full tilt, full intensity, full on so much. You should do it as little as possible while doing enough to get the benefit out of it. And for example, I've done full contact sparring. I've done boxing, I've done kickboxing. I'm doing a lot of live rolling right now, right? The boxing and kickboxing I did, a lot of those reflexes, a lot of those things, they're with me forever. I don't need to do it over and over and over again, right? Same thing with the jiu-jitsu. If you notice, after your first month of jiu-jitsu, there are certain things that you don't need to practice as much. They're right there. You need to practice the things that you aren't doing, right? So, God, very complicated topic. What I want to do is if you have had experiences where you've only been training slow, or you've done a lot of slow training, you've done only certain things in slow, like push hands, or maybe slow motion forms, and you've been able to do those against full speed sparring partners or in self-defense situations, and you never practiced them fast. I want to hear your stories and anecdotes, okay? I want to fuel this conversation because it's a very real thing, and this modern MMA era, a lot of people don't think that it actually exists.